Hi, this is Jones again, and we are going to look at how to change from standard to slope-intercept form. Remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. I want you to notice that in slope-intercept form, your y is by itself. It is isolated on one side of the equal sign. So whenever you have an equation and you're trying to get it into slope-intercept form, your job is to get this positive y all by itself. You don't want a negative y, you want a positive y. So what that basically means is we're going to move everything else over here on this side of the equation to this side using inverse operations until we get it into slope-intercept form. Okay, so the only other thing over here is an x. So I want to move the x over there. It's a positive x, so I'm going to do the inverse, and I'm going to subtract x from both sides. So I'm going to subtract x from this side of the equal sign and from over here. Those cancel. I bring down y. These are unlike terms, so I cannot combine them. I can just bring them down. I like to bring down the one with the x first, because then it looks a lot like slope-intercept form. All right, let's look at another one. This problem is 8x plus y equals a -4. Once again, we want to isolate that y. We want to get this positive y all by itself on this side of the equal sign. The only other thing over here is an 8x. I want to move this entire term. So to move that entire term, I'm going to do the inverse. So it's positive, so I'm going to subtract 8x from this side. If you do it on one side of the equal sign, you have to do it on the other. Cancels, bring down the y. These are unlike terms, so you just bring them down. And guys, don't forget to keep the sign in front of the number. And we're done with that one. So that's pretty easy so far. All right, let's look at this problem. Here is x minus y, sorry about that, equals 2. All right, once again, I want to get this y all by itself. But I do notice something. It is a minus y. Both of these were a positive y. So I'm going to have to add another step. But first, we're still going to do the same thing at first. We're going to move the x. That's what you want to do first. So here we go. To move that x, it's a positive x. So I'm going to do the opposite and subtract x from both sides. Those cancel. I have to bring down the minus y equals a -x plus 2. Bring down those signs. All right, now I don't want to have a negative y. I want to have a positive y. So I've got to get rid of the negative sign. So let's put that understood 1 in there. And this is a -1 times y. Well, the inverse of multiplication would be to divide by a -1. When you divide by a -1, it cancels, and you just have a y over here. But if you divide this side by a -1, you have to divide every term over here by a -1. So a negative divided by a negative, it's going to give me a positive x, and a positive divided by a negative, unlike signs, is going to give me a -2. You really have to watch the signs. That's where, sorry about that, guys, that's where it can really mess you up. Okay, let's do another one here. And we're going to do one that's a little bit more complicated. And that problem is 5x minus 4y equals 12. All right, I want this y right here all by itself. So that means I have to move this entire term, the positive 5x, and I have to move the -4. Okay, to move this entire thing, just like I did on these other problems, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move that mx. It's positive, so I'm going to do the inverse. I'm going to subtract 5x from this side and subtract 5x from this side. They cancel, so I'm going to bring down a negative 4y and then bring both of these terms down. They're unlike terms, so I can't combine them. Well, look, I want the y by itself. Currently, I have a negative 4 times y. So I want to do the inverse to get that y by itself. And the inverse would be to divide. If I divide this by a negative 4, I have to divide everything over here by a negative 4. All right, so bring down the y. Now, I want you to leave your slope here as a fraction because you want your slope to be a fraction because you want it to be rise over run. So negative over negative, that's positive. And then a positive 12 divided by a negative 4 gives me a negative 3. So if you can divide it evenly, go ahead and divide it. If you can't, leave it as a fraction. You might want to simplify it, but you can leave it as a fraction. Okay, so there were 4 examples of how to change from standard form into slope-intercept form. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Remember to always be kind to others.